I guess this is to go back more into show and tell and all that jazz. Um, I find that I like a mix of, I'd say, 80% telling, maybe 20% showing. Just because to me, when somebody's just telling me something, it's like I can already picture it in my head if I'm already knowing what kind of like setting this is, or if I'm familiar with some of the tropes in general. So that way you can get through your story faster. Um, because nowadays I don't have as much free time. When I was younger, maybe I honestly could go through some slower narrative stuff, but sometimes it could also depend on the genre. If, say, like you're doing horror, I imagine you'd want to show some of your characters' physical reactions to certain things a little bit more often. But this is also a case of, yeah, like when it comes to books and everything else, and you're writing and everything, you just cater to what you like more as a writer. You'll eventually find readers that pretty much enjoy or overlap with like 80% of what you do. Because nobody is going to 100% like basically mold themselves to whatever you're writing. Because again, everybody has different preferences, different reading habits. They like to see different things. But overall, yeah, when you're writing your stuff, cater 100% to yourself, especially if you're doing it, mostly as a hobby. Again, this is just my opinion and my outlook on it as I'm writing more things, writing more Uplift Protocol. See, because the thing is, I know a lot of people think showing might be more elevated kind of prose, I guess, or at least that seems to be a common theme for people that are like, oh, you must show, show, show. Um, no, it just depends on the writer. If they just feel like mostly telling a story, then that's what they're going to do. If they enjoy a ton of showing, then that's what they're going to do. It'll be up to the readers to decide, do they want to stick around for stuff or do they just want to nope out of it? It's entirely their choice. I just wish most would make show seem like, no, that's the only way you can do it. That's all what some of these workshops will tell you is like, no, you have to show. You don't tell. And it's like, well, what if you run out of ways to show your character crying or having a breakdown or whatever? See, the thing is sometimes with certain things, even in stories, I honestly, when I'm reading something, and say like the writer's describing like Mary broke down and started sobbing her heart out, her hands clenching at the floor or whatever. That's more than enough for me to picture somebody crouching over, themselves and basically curled up on the floor almost, just sobbing their heart out. I don't need much more tactical input, or not tactical, but tactile. There we go. That's the word. Florida woman murdering the English language 24/7. Boop, boop, boop. But yeah, a more tactile kind of sensation, I guess. But I don't need that as much. Like, even with Uplift Protocol, when I describe an environment, I might do a line or two, but I'm expecting most people to fill in like the blank of like, if you love starships and I describe the Jupiter, you know, as a kind of bullet shaped ship that's, white and red on the outside with something stenciled along the side, it's fine. And it has a couple of decks, 6, 7 decks. I'd have to reference my own notes later, but yeah, still, I don't. When people are familiar with enough with a setting or f- kind of technical tropes and technology or whatever else you're going to use in your setting, I pretty much rely on the readers to just picture a ship in general that is built for speed. It's kind of like to the point where even with Harrington, where Mr. Weber will get lost in the little details, and then it'll slow down the overall story. I mean, I get the fact that people love to have tech explanations, especially for like certain kinds of military sci-fi. but to me that slows down the story, and I'm like, I want to get to the heart of the matter. How is the salamander going to get out of this fire pit and that sort of thing? So, that's just, again, this is all my preferences. Show and tell is probably going to be that constant battle of, no, this is the way to do it, or no, that's the way to do it. It's like you won't know the way you really want to do it until you write, keep writing, write some more, and continue onward. You will eventually discover what you like as a writer as long as you keep writing. Oof, fun stuff, huh? But I'm also looking a bit about the whole show and tell thing on TV tropes just for shits and giggles. And they're saying, oh, if you're using a story structure or point of view that doesn't include a narrator, such as limited third person in which you only see the head of one character, showing is usually the better idea. If only because having a narrator suddenly show up to tell this stuff would break the reader's willing suspension of disbelief. It's like, how do you know what the reader's suspension of disbelief is? When you're writing something, like me, I felt I was like, you know what? I want to have Star as one of the first person narrators for her section when I switch over, and then I'll have like third person point of view for the rest of the characters, so you can get to see some of their reactions to what Star's doing, and then you'll have a more personal one-on-one with her basic point of view. Um, the thing is, like, yeah, the prologue book part of it was mostly third person because she hadn't been born yet. But eventually, when she does turn around, you'll be able to see it by the way she narrates her sections, and her sections are all in first person. Excuse me. God, all this allergies, Jesus. But yeah, you'll see the switch over with her because it'll be in first person. Plus, I usually, if it doesn't have like a little shift break with like describing the location where the person's at, then I'll put a bunch of little stars in the thing to showcase like, hey, we're switching over. Uh, I think sometimes when it comes to writing, far too often people want to basically like, oh, I gotta find the magic formula book that will encapsulate my writing perfectly. It's like, no, that sort of stuff to me personally, it just grows over time. But you gotta keep doing that one solitary thing. Keep writing. And eventually you will develop whatever style you're gonna develop. That's just how it works. Now, will you probably get more divergent word usage later? Yeah. I mean, even when I go back over my stuff and change some words out and everything else, like, yeah, it's going to happen. Eventually, as you improve, you'll go back, look at your older stuff, and then put in improvements. But I'm not going to really go back and do some of those things until I finish Uplift Protocol. Then I'll go back and like, okay, now I'm good. Now that say like I'm 2 years in out from now, because I've already felt I've improved over the since November of last year till now. I felt I've improved, and I wonder what it'll be like 2 years from now when I hopefully have this series done. Again, uh, trying to get down to where it's 3 months per book, maybe even less. That's the plan. But the fact that I even got one book done in like 4 months is like a pretty big milestone. I mean, because again, you see some people that take years and years and years, decades and decades to get one book out. Because I think half the time when they're writing, they're thinking too much about, like, should I change this? Should I change that? And like, what's the perfect way to tell this? It's like, it's okay, everybody. Just shake it out. Keep writing. Even, again, you can try to do what I'm doing, set it up as a serial first, and then release it as a regular book or series later, with added editorial input and things like that. You gotta choose what you want to do, but the only thing that's stopping you from ever completing that project is you. You gotta get in a good mindset and keep on chugging. So don't let show get you down. Don't let tell get you down. Basically, choose what you want to do. If you feel like you just want to basically do, Mary pulls out her hand grenade and throws it at the enemy. It showers them in shrapnel and chemicals as the whatever explodes. You don't have to. If that's basically how you want to say it, then go for it. You don't have to add in like the men held their guts and basically clenched their fists as the grenade hit. Uh, Chairman Jones felt his stomach rise as he emptied the contents of his previous meal out on the ground. Or you don't have to go in depth with showing if that's not your natural inclination. Again, me, I take the storytelling part a lot more, well, a lot more seriously in my terms of writing. So that way, when I do have a little bit of show, it'll be because it's like some sort of important part for the character or a very intense moment, maybe. But even then, show doesn't necessarily trump tell either. Just you do you. That's all I can really say. Uh, it's just personal preference, really, guys. I prefer tell very much so over showing because I feel showing slows down stuff a bit too much. Because, like, unless you're maybe writing kind of like more of a mystery to where you want to get like a little bit of like Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart or whatever like set up, where again like maybe the personal horrific aspect has to come more to the fore. Yeah, I just don't see a reason to slow down stuff too much. Like even with doing the quote stuff with Uplift Protocol in the beginning of each chapter, sometimes I'll put some world building right into that quote where say like see next chapter issue 6 that's chapter 6 is going to have a little entry on dark matter and how it interacts with the weave. I'm going to put it in there so that way like here you go, here's some rules of this particular universe and how it works, but it's not there to derail the overall story. Because info dumps to me, you can do some info dumps with the little opening kind of setup with the quotes. You can do a little info dumping there. um I'm not the type of person that really will get down and get in the nitty gritty with people's psychology or kind of certain kind of reactions, because I just want to tell a simple space opera meets superhero setup. So unless I overall want to like really get into the nitty gritty, which won't probably happen very often, because again that's like kind of like what I'm trying to avoid with certain things. I just want my pew pew. That's it. That's my whole modus operandi. But to some people, some writers, maybe some readers, that's like, oh, that's too simple-minded, or like one track, or what do you call it, like one-dimensional. It's like I just want to entertain. That I don't consider that one-dimensional. But far too often, people that are like more pie in the sky, oh, it must be literary, are the ones that usually react with scorn with stories that just want to tell, the man saves the woman, does some daring heroics, and then they win the day. It is very simple A to B to C resolution. And they look their noses down on it because, for whatever reason, it's like, no, you have to show the psychosis of whatever. And it's like, no. Mm-mm-mm. Uh, yeah. It's like, sometimes the show stuff ends up coming too much to the fore if you want to make too much of an anti-hero or this gritty supposedly super badass character. So the way the darn TV tropes thing describes it, to show that Alice is a badass, she would spend the entire book doing indisputably badass things. More pertinently, the book would go into detail. For instance, the work could begin with a Batman type of setup where she takes on 6 mooks without breaking a sweat. In these circumstances, we don't have to be told she's a badass. We can see it for ourselves. And then for the tell part, because this is also showing their biases, to tell that she is a badass, the narrator, Alice herself, or the other characters around her would merely state that fact. For instance, they could report on previous instances that happened in the past or off screen while the characters were too busy. Maybe there were will be no support for this statement whatsoever, but that's unlikely. Hey, did you hear about the badass things Alice did the other day? No, I didn't. Well, sure, they were badass. And then they put in like the whole crickets thing. It's like sometimes with stories, you can tell certain events just in a line or two. Because again, how much do you want to slow down your narrative to show? Because I guess that also explains why some of the mundane manifesto superhero, well, not really superhero fiction. I guess that's why they show them eating everything under the sun and showing them standing up to the man. It's like showing that incident, was that really relevant to your overall main arc plot for a superhero setup? That's the reason why, even with the prologue book, I showcased certain events when it was relevant to help build up the world and the characters that existed before the main cast existed. But it's not like I covered every little detail. I didn't go into tons of detail about Thomas's training in his early days with the military. It's like plenty of people have seen, basic training montages in books. I just wanted to get to the heart of the fun where it's like, here we go. Here's where Eliza's parents meet. Here's how Eliza's grandparents got set up. Here's their first interaction with Keeper Nullship and, some of the Cabal's antics. It's like you have to pick and choose what kind of events you want to put into something. So I guess I could put this in reader topics. I'll probably put it as show and tell part 2 or episode 2 or something or other. But I just wanted to get some of that off my chest again, because far too often it's just a case of what is the writer's preference and what's the reader's preference. That's the reason why when I see reviews saying, oh, there's too much showing, you know what? That gets my eyeball on the book, and like, I want to read that book because that means they get to the point a lot quicker. Yeah. Some of this stuff just it it just boggles my mind sometimes. Florida Woman needs another drink. That's what it needs. And yeah, telling that what's the saying? Okay, so I can murder more English. Telling that contradicts shown behavior or evidence. Let's see. They hate the Fox action girl. The Alice is supposed to be tough, but she gets beaten up an awful lot. The thing is, that's not only on the female side. I've seen people use male characters in the same way. Basically, kind of like the Worf effect, where this person is supposed to be very confident, but to showcase just how dangerous the villain is, you're going to KO them real quick. Now, the one difference I see is sometimes I did that with Uplift Protocol to showcase like just how dangerous Keeper tech is to Eliza herself, or stuff that's corrupted by their tech. Because that's, again, one of her forms of kryptonite in that particular series. So that's the reason why she gets hurt fairly badly, even in the prologue book with the silver disc that Kronos gave his daughter. And see, the thing is, though, Star pushed her teammate out of the way because, to her, she's fairly invulnerable. So she feels she has to use that invulnerability to shield other people. She didn't know that those discs were magically enhanced with Earth shit and, Keeper tech. That's like a double whammy right there. But that's why I also showcase why there's somebody like Doc there and Sir Avalon to help remove the stuff from Star. And I did it in such a way to where it's establishing what some of the Achilles' heels basically are for this character, because far too often people also have the same setup where they think Superman's too powerful, so they gotta knock him down a peg, find something to knock him down. Well, I just wanted to establish early, like, yes, this is a particular sensitivity Eliza has. So, but it also works in her favor because she then again can detect the keepers a whole lot easier. That's why her father's Osiris program took some cues from that, and they were able to build certain kinds of devices. Again, this is partially shown in the prologue book, that her weaknesses also end up becoming a strength for other characters because they can use that to detect the enemy easier in some cases. Now, the way I have it built up is eventually some of that will be offset by the combined efforts of new technologies from the Muthra angle, from new kind of, magical abilities that will spring up. Because again, it's not like all the magical characters are sitting in a vacuum not doing anything. They're actively researching stuff. It's just that it hasn't been on screen yet because the story isn't quite to that point yet. But I do have a lot of the basic ebb and flow of the narration already plotted out. So, I guess that's about it. Most of the time, I seem to go between 20 and 30 minutes with these longer talks. But I will probably I'll probably put this in show and tell. And I'll probably link Uplift Protocol with it as well, just for hoo-ha's. So there you go. God. And they seem to really hate on TV tropes this whole designated love interest, when we've got nothing but the narrative's word for it that the fellow the book follows is in fact romantically attached to the heroine. They really do not like some more old-fashioned type stuff, do they? So yeah, you know what? You can use TV tropes as kind of like, I guess, a studying piece or something if you want, but don't take what they have in there with 100% proof positive that this is the way you should do things. I just pop in there every once in a while to basically laugh at their examples. Because those guys are pretty lopsided to their own preferences too, and most of their mods, or it seems like people who change things around, they have a pretty set idea of what they want, and it doesn't always serve whatever book or series that they're covering either. Have a good day, everybody.